The words sliced through the air like broken glass. Your opinion doesn't matter, Margaret. It's our wedding. I stood in my own kitchen, surrounded by wedding magazines I'd bought with my own money, staring at a woman I'd tried so hard to love. My hands were still wet from washing the lunch dishes, the lunch I'd made for her and my son while they sat at my table, planning their future. The towel slipped from my fingers and landed on the counter with a soft thud that seemed louder than it should have been. Chelsea didn't even look up from her phone. Her manicured nails, French tips, expensive, the kind that cost more than my weekly grocery budget, tapped against the screen with practiced indifference. My son David, my only child, sat beside her with his shoulders hunched forward, like he was trying to disappear into himself. "Chelsea, that's not," he started, but she cut him off with a look, just a look, and my 32-year-old son, a grown man with a master's degree and a successful career, went silent. That's when I knew. That's when I really, truly understood what I'd been refusing to see for the past 8 months. Before we continue, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, and let us know where in the world you're watching from in the comments. Now, back to my story. My name is Margaret Chen. I'm 61 years old, and I've spent the last 3 decades of my life building something from nothing. When my husband died in a construction accident when David was only 3, I didn't have time to fall apart. I worked double shifts as a nurse, went back to school, eventually became a nurse practitioner. I bought this house, this modest 3-bedroom colonial in a decent neighborhood, with money I saved dollar by dollar. I put David through college without loans. I taught him about respect, kindness, and integrity, or at least, I thought I had. "Mom," David said quietly, finally finding some fragment of his voice, "Chelsea just means that we want to make our own decisions. You understand, right?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. There were new lines around his mouth, stress lines that hadn't been there 6 months ago. He'd lost weight. His skin had that grayish tint that came from too little sleep and too much anxiety. "I was just suggesting that having the ceremony outside in March might be risky," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. "The weather can be unpredictable." I thought maybe, "See?" Chelsea's voice was sharp, cutting. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You think we haven't considered the weather? You think we're children who need you to manage every little detail." I never said that. You didn't have to. She finally looked up from her phone, and her eyes were cold, ice blue and cold. "You've been trying to control this wedding since the moment David told you we were engaged. The venue, the colors, the guest list, the menu. You have an opinion about everything." My chest tightened. "I've been trying to help." "Help?" She let out a laugh that wasn't really a laugh. "Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm sitting it feels like interference, like you can't stand the idea that David has a life that doesn't revolve around you anymore." The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. "Chelsea, come on," David said, but there was no force behind it. He sounded tired, defeated. "No, David, she needs to hear this." Chelsea stood up, all 5'9" of her, in her designer athleisure wear that probably cost more than my car payment. "Margaret, I'm going to be direct with you because I think that's what you need. This wedding is about me and David, not you. Your role is to show up, smile, and support your son. That's it. We don't need your suggestions. We don't need your concerns. We don't need you to save us money or tell us what worked at weddings 30 years ago." I felt something crack inside my chest, something that had been holding strong for so long, through so many years of loneliness and sacrifice, and putting everyone else first. "I paid for the venue deposit, and," I said quietly. "What?" Chelsea's perfectly shaped eyebrows drew together. "The venue. The Riverside estate, the $5,000 deposit that you needed to secure the date. I paid it." Silence filled the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked. David's face had gone pale. "Mom, you didn't have to." "I wanted to," I said, still looking at Chelsea. "I wanted to give you both a beautiful wedding, I wanted to help you start your marriage without the stress of debt. I've been putting money aside every month since you got engaged." Chelsea's expression didn't soften. If anything, it hardened. "We didn't ask you to do that." "No, you didn't ask. I offered, and David accepted." "Well," she picked up her purse, a designer bag I recognized from a magazine spread. "Then consider it a gift. But a gift doesn't come with strings attached, Margaret. A gift doesn't give you the right to make decisions for us." She walked toward the door, her heels clicking on my hardwood floors. David stood up slowly, like an old man instead of a young one. "Mom, He stopped, swallowed. "I'll call you later, okay?" He followed Chelsea out. I heard his car start. I watched through the kitchen window as they drove away, and I saw Chelsea talking animatedly, her hands gesturing, probably telling him everything else she thought was wrong with me. I stood in my empty kitchen, in the house I'd worked so hard to buy, surrounded by the wedding magazines I'd bought to try to connect with my future daughter-in-law, and I felt something shift inside me, something fundamental, something that couldn't shift back. The phone call came 3 days later. I was in the middle of a 12-hour shift at the clinic, taking a late lunch at 2 in the afternoon, when David's name lit up my screen. "Hey, sweetheart," I answered, trying to sound normal, even though we hadn't spoken since the kitchen incident. "Mom," his voice was strained. "Listen, I need to talk to you about something." I set down my sandwich. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. It's just, Chelsea and I have been talking, and we really appreciate everything you've done for the wedding. We do, but we think it might be better if we handle the finances ourselves from here on out." My stomach dropped. "David, it's not personal, Mom. We just want to feel independent, like we're building this together, you know? We're adults. We should be paying for our own wedding." I closed my eyes, and I could hear Chelsea's words coming out of his mouth. The phrasing was all wrong for David. He'd never talked about building together before. He'd never used the word independent, like it was a weapon. "Of course," I said softly. "I understand." "You do?" "Yes, you're absolutely right. You and Chelsea should make your own decisions." I paused. "Does this mean you want me to cancel the deposit at the venue?" "What? No. God, no, Mom. That's already done. We just mean, going forward, the catering, the flowers, the photographer, we'll handle all of that." "With what money, David?" The question hung there. I hadn't meant it to sound harsh, but facts were facts. David had a good job as a software engineer, but he also had student loans from his undergraduate years at a private university, loans he'd insisted on taking out for the full college experience, despite my offer to send him to state school debt-free. He had a nice apartment in an expensive neighborhood. He drove a leased BMW. He went on vacation twice a year. Chelsea worked in marketing, or so she said. I'd never been quite clear on the details. She lived in an even more expensive apartment before moving in with David 6 months ago. She wore designer clothes, carried designer bags, and had her hair done at a salon that charged $200 for highlights. "We have money," David said, defensive now. "We're not kids. I never said you were. Then why are you questioning us?" "I'm not questioning you. I'm asking a practical question. Weddings are expensive, David." "The venue alone is $20,000 for the day. The catering package Chelsea showed me last month was another $15,000. The photographer she wants is—" "We'll figure it out, Mom." "Okay." I kept my voice gentle. "Okay, sweetheart. You'll figure it out." There was a pause. Then, "Chelsea thinks maybe you should also step back from the wedding planning meetings." The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples through everything. "Step back?" "She just feels like you're too involved. Like every time we meet with a vendor, you're there, and it makes her feel like she doesn't have a say." I thought about the florist appointment 2 weeks ago. I'd driven 40 minutes to meet them at the flower shop, arrived early to look at samples, and spent 2 hours listening to Chelsea describe her vision for cascading orchids and imported roses. I'd nodded. I'd asked questions. I'd agreed that yes, the white orchids were stunning. I'd suggested adding some greenery for texture, and Chelsea had shot me a look like I'd suggested decorating with garbage. "I've been trying to help," I said. I know, Mom, but maybe the best way to help is to just let us do this ourselves. After we hung up, I sat in the break room staring at my half-eaten sandwich until my colleague, Patricia, came in and asked if I was okay. Fine, I lied. Just tired. But I wasn't fine. I was beginning to see a pattern I'd been too close to notice before. It was my friend Susan who finally said it out loud. We were having coffee at our usual spot, the diner near the hospital where we'd been meeting every Thursday morning for the past 15 years. Susan was a social worker, sharp-eyed and direct, the kind of friend who told you the truth even when it hurt. "She's isolating him," Susan said, stirring sugar into her coffee. "What?" "Chelsea. She's isolating David from you. It's textbook behavior." I shook my head. "She's just assertive. She knows what she wants. Margaret." Susan put down her spoon and looked at me with those eyes that had seen too many bad situations to sugarcoat anything. "Listen to what you're telling me. She's cut you out of the wedding planning. She's convinced David to refuse your financial help he clearly needs, by the way. She speaks for him. She makes decisions for him. She's rude to you in your own home, and he doesn't defend you. Do you hear yourself? He's in love, maybe. Or maybe he's afraid. Afraid of what? Of losing her, of her anger, of making waves." Susan leaned forward. "When was the last time you and David spent time alone together? Just the two of you?" I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't remember. Before Chelsea, David and I had Sunday dinners every week. We'd go to movies. We'd talk on the phone for hours about everything and nothing. Now our conversations were brief, surface level, and usually included Chelsea in the background making comments or suggestions. "People change when they get into relationships," I said weakly. "They shouldn't disappear." That word, disappear, stayed with me, because that's what was happening. My son was disappearing piece by piece into Chelsea's vision of who he should be. 2 weeks later, I got uninvited from the cake tasting. David called on a Tuesday evening. I was in the garden pulling weeds from the flower beds I'd planted the year after he left for college, when I'd needed something to fill the empty hours. "Hey, Mom, so about the cake tasting on Saturday." I'd had it on my calendar for 3 weeks. I'd rearranged my shift to make it work. "Chelsea thinks it might be better if it's just us. She says too many opinions will confuse the baker." I sat back on my heels, dirt on my gloves, sun warm on my face. "The baker said to bring family." "I know, but David," I interrupted him gently. "What's really going on?" Silence, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then, "She says you make her feel judged." "Judged?" "She says every time she makes a choice, you have this look on your face. Like you don't approve." "What look?" "I don't know, Mom. A look. She feels it." I thought about every interaction I'd had with Chelsea. Yes, I'd been surprised by some of her choices, the cost of things, the extravagance, the casual way she made decisions that would put my son into debt for years. But I'd tried so hard to be supportive. I'd bitten my tongue more times than I could count. "I've never said anything negative to her," I said. "She says you don't have to. She can feel it." So I'm being uninvited to wedding events because of feelings, because of a look I'm apparently giving? "Mom, please don't make this harder than it has to be." "Harder for whom?" He didn't answer that. I went to the cake tasting anyway. Not inside. I wasn't cruel, but I sat in my car across the street from the bakery and watched them through the window. Watched Chelsea laugh and feed David samples of cake. Watched her lean into him, proprietary and possessive. Watched my son smile, but it was a smile I didn't recognize. Tight, careful, the smile of someone walking on eggshells. The breaking point came at what was supposed to be a family dinner. Chelsea had suggested it, suggested not asked, and I'd been so surprised by the olive branch that I'd said yes immediately. I'd spent 2 days cooking David's favorite dishes, pot roast with vegetables, homemade rolls, apple pie from scratch. I'd cleaned the house until it gleamed. I'd even bought fresh flowers for the table. They arrived 30 minutes late. Chelsea walked in without apologizing, just handed me her coat like I was staff. "Sorry," David muttered. "Traffic." There hadn't been traffic. I'd checked. Dinner was tense from the start. I asked about work, about the wedding plans, about their lives. Chelsea answered in clipped sentences. David barely spoke at all. I felt like I was conducting an interview rather than having a conversation with my own son. Then, halfway through the meal, Chelsea's phone rang. "Oh, I have to take this," she said, not asking permission, just standing up from the table with her plate half full. She walked into the living room, and I could hear her voice, suddenly bright and animated, laughing at something someone said. David and I sat in painful silence. "The pot roast is good, Mom," he offered. "Thank you, sweetheart. I miss your cooking." Something in his voice made me look up. He looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes I hadn't noticed before. "You can come over any time for dinner," I said gently. "You know that. Yeah, it's just hard to get away." "Get away from what?" He didn't answer, just pushed food around his plate. Chelsea came back 15 minutes later, glowing. That was the photographer. She had a cancellation and can do an engagement shoot this weekend. Isn't that amazing? "That's great," David said, but he didn't sound excited. "We'll need to go shopping for outfits. I'm thinking coordinated but not matchy-matchy. Maybe neutrals and blues. Oh, and we should do it at the park, the one with the fountain. Golden hour, obviously." She talked for 10 minutes straight about the photo shoot. David nodded along. I watched. Then she turned to me, almost as an afterthought. "Oh, and Margaret. We've decided on the guest list. It's going to be intimate. Just 150 people." "That's quite intimate," I said carefully. "Well, we want it to feel exclusive, special, not like some huge circus." She paused, a smile playing at her lips that didn't reach her eyes. "So we've had to make some cuts. Your cousin Linda and her family didn't make the list. Neither did your work friends. Actually, we're keeping your guest count pretty small. Just immediate family." I set down my fork. "How small?" 10 people. That's more than fair, considering David has a larger family on his father's side." David's father had been an only child. His parents were dead. The larger family consisted of 2 distant cousins he hadn't seen in 15 years. 10 people. Yes, you, obviously. And you can bring a +1 if you want, though I don't know if you're seeing anyone. The way she said it made it sound like a failing. "That's 2. Then maybe a few close family members, but we need to prioritize people who are actually involved in our lives, you understand." I looked at David. "You agreed to this?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's our wedding, Mom. We want it to be intimate." "Intimate, except for the 150 people." "We have a lot of friends," Chelsea said. "The venue has capacity limits. We can't just invite everyone." "But you can invite your entire sorority." Her expression hardened. "Those women are my sisters. And Linda is my actual family. I was there when she was born. I held her at her mother's funeral. She helped me paint this house. She drove 3 hours when you got the flu last year to bring you homemade soup. This isn't about you," Chelsea said, her voice cold. "It's about my son's wedding. It's about family." "No." She stood up, throwing her napkin on the table. "It's about our wedding, mine and David's, and we've made our decision. If you can't respect that, then maybe you shouldn't come at all." The words hung in the air like poison gas. David finally looked up. "Chelsea." "No, David. I'm tired of tiptoeing around her feelings. Your mother needs to understand that this day is not about her. Her opinions don't matter. Her preferences don't matter. The only thing that matters is what we want. Period." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. David stood up slowly. "I should go," I said quietly. "Go with your fiancé." He hesitated. And for just a moment, I saw my son, my real son, the boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the teenager who cried on my shoulder when his high school girlfriend broke his heart, the young man who called me after his first day at his first real job, excited and terrified and wanting to tell me everything. Then the moment passed, and he followed Chelsea out the door. I sat at my dining room table, surrounded by food I'd spent 2 days preparing, and I realized something crucial. I couldn't save David from this. He had to save himself. but I could stop letting myself be destroyed in the process. The next morning, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to the venue. Riverside Estate, this is Jennifer speaking. Hi, Jennifer. This is Margaret Chen. I'm the mother of the groom for the David Chen and Chelsea Morrison wedding in March. Oh, yes. How can I help you? I need some information about the contract, specifically about who's responsible for payment. There was a pause, the sound of typing. Let me pull that up. Okay, so the deposit was paid by you, Mrs. Chen, $5,000. The balance of $15,000 is due 2 weeks before the event. The contract is in the name of David Chen and Chelsea Morrison, but there's a note here that you're listed as a financial guarantor. Financial guarantor. I'd forgotten that part. When I'd paid the deposit, they'd asked who would be ultimately responsible if the couple couldn't pay. I'd signed without thinking, without imagining a scenario where my son couldn't cover his own wedding. And if the balance isn't paid, the deposit is forfeited and the venue contract is canceled. I see, thank you. The second call was to my financial advisor. Margaret, good to hear from you. What can I do for you? I need to know the status of my savings account, the one I've been putting money into for David's wedding. More typing. Then, you've got $22,800, plus the $5,000 deposit you already paid. You're sitting at almost $28,000 allocated for this event. $28,000. Money I'd saved by working overtime shifts, by skipping vacations, by buying my clothes at thrift stores and eating leftovers for lunch. Money I'd planned to give my son as a gift, a foundation for his future. I want to know about moving it, I said. Moving it where? Into an untouchable account, something with penalties for early withdrawal, something I can't access easily. That's unusual. May I ask why? Let's call it self-preservation. The third call was the hardest. I dialed David's number and waited through 4 rings before he picked up. Mom? David, I need you to listen to me, and I need you to really hear what I'm saying. Is this about last night? Because Chelsea feels terrible about how things... Stop. I'd never used that tone with him before. Sharp. Final. I'm not calling to talk about Chelsea's feelings. I'm calling to tell you something important about the wedding. Okay. I paid the deposit for the venue, $5,000. I also signed as a financial guarantor, which means if you can't pay the balance, I'm legally responsible for it. Mom, you didn't have to. I did it because I wanted to. But things have changed, David. You and Chelsea have made it very clear that you want to handle this wedding yourselves, that you don't want my involvement, that my opinions don't matter. That's not exactly. So I'm going to honor that. I'm not going to pay for anything else. The $15,000 venue balance is your responsibility. The catering, the flowers, the photographer, the dress, all of it. That's on you and Chelsea. You're adults. You'll figure it out. Silence. Mom, we can't afford all of that. There it was, the truth, spoken plainly for the first time. Then you'll need to make different choices. Scale back. Have a smaller wedding. Whatever you decide, it's your decision to make, not mine. But the venue, we already told everyone about the Riverside Estate. Chelsea has been showing people pictures. We have the save the dates printed with the address. Then you'll need to come up with $15,000 in the next 3 months. We don't have that kind of money. You know we don't. Then maybe you should have thought about that before telling me to step back, before uninviting me from the cake tasting, before limiting my guest list to 10 people, before allowing your fiancé to treat me like I'm an inconvenience instead of the woman who raised you. I could hear him breathing, fast and shallow. I'm not trying to punish you, I said, softer now. I'm setting a boundary. You want independence? This is what independence looks like. It means making choices and living with the consequences. Chelsea is going to lose her mind. That's between you and Chelsea. Mom, please, can't we talk about this? We just did. I love you, David. I always will. But I'm done being treated like my only value is my checkbook. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But somewhere underneath the fear and sadness, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. The messages started within an hour. David. Mom, please call me back. We need to talk about this. David. Chelsea is really upset. Can we please just sit down and discuss this like adults? David. I don't understand why you're doing this. This isn't like you. Then that evening, Chelsea started texting. I hadn't even known she had my number. Chelsea. I can't believe you would do this to David. Do you have any idea how much stress you're causing him? Chelsea. This is his wedding, the most important day of his life. And you're ruining it because you can't handle not being in control. Chelsea. We trusted you. We trusted you, and this is how you repay us? I didn't respond to any of them. I turned my phone on silent and spent the evening in my garden, weeding and watering as the sun set and the air cooled. Susan called around 9. I heard, she said. How? David called me. He's desperate, Margaret. He wanted me to talk sense into you. And I told him that the only person who needs sense talked into them is him. I heard her sigh. He's in deep, isn't he? Deeper than I realized. What are you going to do? I'm going to let him figure it out. 3 days passed. The messages continued, growing more desperate from David and more hostile from Chelsea. I didn't respond. I went to work. I came home. I lived my life. On the 4th day, David showed up at my house unannounced. I was making dinner when the doorbell rang. When I opened it, he looked awful. His hair was messy, his eyes were red, and he'd clearly been wearing the same clothes for more than a day. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside. He walked into the kitchen like a ghost, like he didn't quite know where he was. I poured him a glass of water and waited. She's been screaming at me for 4 days straight, he said finally, about the wedding, about the money, about you. I'm sorry. Are you? He looked up at me. Because it feels like you're punishing us. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting myself. From what? From being used, from being discarded after I've served my purpose, from watching my son disappear into someone else's idea of who he should be. His face crumpled. For a moment, I thought he was going to cry. I don't know what to do, he whispered. She says if we can't have the wedding she wants, she'll call it off. Then maybe you should call it off. His head snapped up. What? David, listen to yourself. Your fiancé is threatening to end your engagement because you can't afford an expensive venue. Does that sound like love to you? You don't understand. The wedding is important to her. It's her dream. What about your dreams? My dream is to be with her. Even if it means losing yourself? He stood up abruptly, knocking his chair back. You've never liked her. From day one, you've been looking for reasons to criticize her. That's not true, isn't it? You think I don't notice the way you look at her? The way you tense up when she talks? You've been waiting for her to fail. I've been watching her isolate you from everyone who loves you. I've been watching her make demands and throw tantrums when she doesn't get her way. I've been watching my son become a stranger. I'm not a stranger. I'm just finally living my own life. Are you? I kept my voice gentle. Or are you living the life Chelsea has planned for you? He stared at me, breathing hard. Then he turned and walked out without another word. I didn't hear from David for 2 weeks. The silence was excruciating. I kept my phone close at all times, jumping every time it buzzed, hoping to see his name. But there was nothing. Susan called daily to check on me. Patricia brought me casseroles I couldn't eat. My cousin Linda drove up from Richmond to sit with me on the couch and watch mindless television. He'll come around, Linda said. David's a good boy. You raised him right. Did I? Because right now it doesn't feel like it. You gave him everything. Sometimes kids don't understand that until they're older. On day 15, I was coming home from a late shift when I saw David's car in my driveway. He was sitting on my front steps, and he looked even worse than before, thinner, older. How long have you been waiting? I asked. Couple hours. I unlocked the door and let him in. He followed me to the kitchen and sat at the table while I made tea. Chelsea found out about the photographer, he said finally. What about the photographer? The one she wanted. The famous one who charges $5,000 for a wedding package. I told her we couldn't afford it. She said we'd just put it on a credit card. I said no. We already have too much debt. I poured the tea and sat across from him. She asked me where the money went. The money you'd been saving. I told her you weren't paying for the wedding anymore. He wrapped his hands around the mug. She said this was all your fault, that you were sabotaging us, that you were a bitter old woman who couldn't stand to see me happy. The words hurt, but I'd expected them. Then she said we should just elope. Forget the whole wedding. Go to Vegas or something. He looked up at me, and his eyes were devastated. I said, okay, if that's what you want, we'll elope. What did she say? She said that's not what she wants. She wants a real wedding, a beautiful wedding, the wedding she's been planning since she was a little girl. She said if I really loved her, I'd find a way to make it happen. And I said I do love her, but I can't create money that doesn't exist. We could take out loans, but we're already struggling with the debt we have. I suggested we scale back, have the wedding at a local park or a restaurant, something beautiful but affordable. He paused, his jaw working. She said I was being cheap, that I was embarrassing her, that all her friends are having dream weddings, and she deserves the same thing. His voice cracked. She said, if I can't give her the wedding she deserves, maybe she needs to find someone who can. My heart broke for him, for the pain in his voice, for the realization finally dawning. What did you say? I asked her if she was saying she'd leave me over a wedding. She said she's saying she won't settle for less than she deserves. Then she went to stay at her friend Brittany's apartment. She's been there for 3 days. Oh, David, I keep thinking about what you said, about losing myself, about the person I've become. He looked at me with tears streaming down his face. I don't recognize my own life anymore, Mom. I work constantly to pay for things Chelsea wants. I stopped playing basketball with my friends because she says it's a waste of time. I haven't been to visit you because she always has something else planned. I can't even choose what to eat for dinner without checking with her first. How long has it been like this? I don't know. It happened so gradually I didn't notice. At first I thought it was sweet that she had opinions about everything, that she wanted to be involved in all my decisions. I thought it meant she cared. He wiped his eyes. When did caring turn into controlling? Usually when you stop saying no. He nodded slowly. I've been so afraid of losing her that I lost myself instead. We sat in silence for a while, drinking our tea. Finally, I reached across the table and took his hand. What do you want, David? Not what Chelsea wants, not what you think you should want. What do you actually want? He was quiet for a long time. Then, I want to feel like myself again. I want to spend time with people I care about without feeling guilty. I want a partner who respects me, not someone who threatens to leave every time I disagree with her. Then you know what you need to do. I'm scared. I know. What if I'm making a mistake? What if I'm throwing away the best thing that ever happened to me? I squeezed his hand. Sweetheart, the best thing that can happen to you is a partner who loves you for who you are, not for what you can give them. Someone who builds you up instead of tearing you down. Someone who adds to your life instead of subtracting from it. She's going to hate me. She might, but you'll be free. David called Chelsea the next morning and asked her to meet him at the house. Our house. He said he wanted me there, and surprisingly, she agreed. She showed up at 11, dressed immaculately as always, her expression somewhere between annoyed and triumphant. So you've come to your senses? She said to David, not even acknowledging me. Sit down, Chelsea, David said. His voice was steady, calm. I saw a glimpse of the strong man I'd raised. She sat, perching on the edge of the couch like she might flee at any moment. I've been thinking a lot about us, David began, about our relationship, about the wedding, about everything. Good. Because I've been thinking too, and I've found a way to make the Riverside estate work. If your mother would just... This isn't about the venue, David interrupted. This is about us, about how we treat each other, about what kind of partnership we have. Chelsea's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? I'm saying that I don't think we should get married. The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway, the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Chelsea's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: shock, disbelief, fury. Are you serious right now? Her voice was dangerous, quiet. Yes. Because of her, she jabbed a finger at me. Because your mommy convinced you to dump me? Because I've realized that we want different things, that we have different values, that every conversation we have ends with me apologizing for not being enough, or not doing enough, or not having enough. That's not fair, isn't it? David's voice was still calm. Chelsea, when was the last time you asked me how I was feeling? About anything? When was the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about the wedding or things you want or problems you have? She stopped, regrouped. This is ridiculous. You're having cold feet. Every groom gets cold feet. This isn't cold feet. This is clarity. She turned to me, her eyes blazing. This is your fault. You poisoned him against me. You've been trying to break us up from the beginning. I've been trying to protect my son, I said quietly. Protect him from what? From being happy? From having a life with someone who actually understands him? From being controlled, from being diminished, from turning into someone he's not. Chelsea stood up, trembling with rage. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're a lonely, bitter woman who can't stand that David has moved on. You want him to stay your little boy forever, living in your shadow, following your rules. Actually, David said, Mom's the only person who's ever encouraged me to think for myself. The only person who's ever asked what I want instead of telling me what I should want. I cannot believe this. Chelsea's voice rose to a shout. I have planned every detail of this wedding. I have spent months picking out every flower, every color, every song. I have told everyone about this incredible venue and this perfect day, and now you want to just throw it all away. The wedding was never about us, David said. It was about the image, about the Instagram photos and the impression you'd make on your friends. How dare you? It's true, Chelsea. Admit it. You care more about having a perfect wedding than about having a good marriage. She grabbed her purse, her hand shaking. You're going to regret this. You're going to wake up one day and realize you let the best thing that ever happened to you walk away. Maybe, David said, but I don't think so. She looked at me one more time, her expression pure venom. I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy that you've ruined your son's life. I hope my son has a chance to build the life he actually wants, I replied. Chelsea stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. David and I sat in the aftermath, listening to her car screech out of the driveway. Well, he said, after a moment, that went about as well as I expected. Are you okay? I don't know. He looked at me, and there was something lighter in his eyes despite everything. But I will be. The next 2 weeks were difficult. Chelsea launched a social media campaign that would have been impressive if it weren't so vicious. She posted vague messages about toxic people and betrayal and mothers who can't let go. Her friends rallied around her, posting supportive comments and heart emojis. David's phone blew up with messages from mutual friends asking what happened, taking sides, demanding explanations. Some of them were surprisingly cruel. Dude, your mom really ruined your life. Chelsea's devastated. How could you do this to her? You'll never find someone like her again. You messed up. David blocked most of them. The ones who actually reached out to ask how he was doing, who listened without judgment. Those were the friends he kept. Slowly, gradually, I watched my son come back to himself. He started playing basketball again. He came over for Sunday dinners. He laughed more. The tension in his shoulders eased. The light came back into his eyes. One evening, about a month after the breakup, we were sitting on my back porch watching the sunset. I got a call from the venue today, he said. Oh? They wanted to confirm that the wedding was canceled. I told them yes. They said they'd keep the deposit for their cancellation fee, which is standard. I nodded. The $5,000 was gone, but David was back. It seemed like a reasonable trade. The thing is, he continued, the woman I talked to told me something interesting. She said Chelsea had called them 2 weeks before our breakup, asking about their payment policy. Specifically, she wanted to know what would happen if the bill didn't get paid. My stomach tightened. What did they tell her? That the person listed as financial guarantor, you, would be responsible for the full amount, the deposit, plus the $15,000 balance. He looked at me. Mom, she knew. She knew that if we couldn't pay, you'd be on the hook for $20,000. The pieces fell into place. Chelsea's insistence on the expensive venue, her dismissiveness when I'd tried to suggest alternatives, her rage when I'd pulled my financial support. She was never planning to pay for it, I said slowly. She was going to stick me with the bill. That's what it looks like. David's jaw tightened. And when you pulled out, when you set that boundary, her whole plan fell apart. That's why she was so angry. Not because she loved me so much she couldn't bear to scale back the wedding, because she'd been counting on manipulating you into paying for everything. We sat with that knowledge for a while. I'm sorry, Mom. For what? For not seeing it sooner, for choosing her over you, for letting her treat you the way she did. You were in love. Or you thought you were. I was infatuated. There's a difference. He shook his head. Real love doesn't make you feel small. It doesn't make you afraid. It doesn't make you choose between the person you're with and the people who've always loved you. No, I agreed. It doesn't. The final piece of the story came 6 weeks after the breakup. I was at work when I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Margaret Chen? Yes. This is Bradley Morrison, Chelsea's father. I nearly dropped the phone. Mr. Morrison, I'm surprised to hear from you. I imagine you are. His voice was gruff, uncomfortable. Listen, I'm calling to apologize and to explain some things. I sat down at my desk. I'm listening. Chelsea came home after the breakup. She's been here for the past month and she's been telling us her version of events, about how you sabotaged the wedding, about how you turned David against her, about how you're a controlling, manipulative woman who couldn't stand to let your son be happy. My heart sank. I see. But here's the thing. My wife and I raised 4 daughters. Chelsea's the youngest, and we've seen this pattern before. He sighed heavily. When Chelsea was in college, she got engaged to a young man from a wealthy family, planned this huge, extravagant wedding. The boy's parents were paying for everything. Then, about 2 months before the wedding, the boy broke it off. Chelsea told us it was because his mother was jealous of her, couldn't stand to lose her son, sabotaged everything. I said nothing, waiting. Then there was another engagement about 3 years ago. Same thing. Big plans, expensive tastes, and suddenly the engagement ends with Chelsea painting herself as the victim of the man's family. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. Because yesterday I got a very interesting phone call from a lawyer. Apparently, Chelsea signed a contract with a wedding planner, ordered tens of thousands of dollars worth of services, photographer, florist, caterer, dress alterations, and listed David as the person responsible for payment. None of these vendors have been paid. Some of them are threatening to sue. My blood ran cold. David doesn't know anything about this. I didn't think he did. The lawyer said the contracts were signed by Chelsea using David's email address, which is fraud, Mrs. Chen. It's fraud. What are you going to do? My wife and I are going to pay the bills. We're going to clean up Chelsea's mess, like we've done before. But I wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to know that my daughter— He paused, his voice thick with emotion. My daughter has a problem. She's always been our baby, always gotten what she wanted. We thought it was just high standards. We thought she just knew what she deserved. But this is beyond that. Thank you for telling me, I said. Will you tell David about the contracts? Yes, he deserves to know. We're getting Chelsea help, professional help. She's not happy about it, but it's not negotiable anymore." He cleared his throat. "And Mrs. Chen? For what it's worth, I think David is lucky to have a mother who loves him enough to set boundaries, even when it's hard." After we hung up, I sat at my desk for a long time processing everything. That evening I told David. His face went pale as I explained about the fraudulent contracts, about the pattern of behavior, about his near miss with financial ruin. "She could have destroyed my credit," he whispered. "She could have buried me in debt I didn't even know about. But she didn't, because you had the courage to walk away. Because you had the courage to say no." He looked at me with such gratitude it made my chest ache. "If you hadn't pulled your support, if you'd just paid for everything like she expected, I'd probably be married to her right now, drowning in debt, trapped in a relationship that would have slowly destroyed me. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe. Or maybe I would have spent years making excuses, convincing myself it was normal, teaching our kids that this is what love looks like." He shuddered. "You saved me, Mom. By refusing to save me, you actually saved me. It's been 6 months now. David is in therapy, working through the trauma of the relationship, learning to recognize red flags, rebuilding his sense of self. He's dating someone new, a teacher named Rachel who makes him laugh, who asks about his day, who came to Sunday dinner and helped me wash dishes while telling me stories about her students. She's not flashy or dramatic. She's kind. She's real. And when I suggested we all go to a movie together, she said, 'I'd love that, without a single caveat or condition. The money I saved is still sitting in that account. David doesn't want it. He says he needs to build his life on his own terms, make his own choices, prove to himself that he can. I respect that.' Sometimes I think about Chelsea's words that day in my kitchen. 'Your opinion doesn't matter. It's our wedding.' She was right about one thing. It wasn't my wedding. It wasn't my choice to make, but it also wasn't just their wedding. It was my money she was spending, my heart she was breaking, my son she was isolating and manipulating. I learned something important through all of this. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in someone else's dysfunction. Sometimes saying no is the only way to save someone you love. I think about what might have happened if I'd just paid for everything, if I'd kept my mouth shut and my checkbook open, if I'd prioritized peace over principles. David would be married to a woman who saw him as a means to an end. He'd be drowning in debt from a wedding that was never really about celebrating love. He'd be caught in a cycle of manipulation and control that would have only gotten worse over time, and I would have been complicit in all of it. Instead, I'm sitting on my back porch on a Sunday evening, listening to David and Rachel laugh in my kitchen while they make dinner together. Really together, sharing the work, making decisions collaboratively, treating each other with respect and affection. My phone buzzes. It's a text from David. "Rachel wants to know if you like mushrooms in your pasta." I smile and text back, "Love them." Another text. She said she knew it because you seem like someone with good taste. Then, "I think I really like this one, Mom." I type back, "I think I really like her too, but the only opinion that matters is yours." 3 dots appear then. My opinion matters to her. That's how I know she's different. I set my phone down and look out at my garden. The flowers I planted after David left for college are blooming. Roses and lavender and black-eyed Susans, resilient and beautiful. I think about boundaries, about self-respect, about the difference between supporting someone and enabling them, about how sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices. Chelsea wanted a wedding. I wanted my son to have a life worth living. In the end, by refusing to pay the bill, I gave him something far more valuable than a party. I gave him the chance to choose himself, and that, I've learned, is the greatest gift a mother can give. Thank you for listening to my story, and thank you for being here.